Hello, hello. Good afternoon. It is time for quilting time. You guys ready to play? As usual, if you could let me know how we're doing as far as our sound and visibility. Is that a good camera angle for you? Then that's always helpful to me to make sure that I've got the right situation for you. I'm just going to close the door to make sure that we don't have any extraneous noise. Hi Sheena, hi Jane, hi Patsy, hi Sue. It's like all my best friends. I love you guys. It's been really fun getting to know everybody and see everybody's different projects and everything. I'm loving that. So last week we were working on this. I'm going to see if I can pull us out just a little so we can sort of get a little better angle here. How's that? I think that's a little bit better. You can see it a little bit more. Let that camera settle down. Here, I'm going to scoot that out. There we go. This way I can make sure everything's not moving. I have to clamp down everything against vibration. So let's recap from where we were last week. This is predominantly the Fun and Fancy set. So I'm going to put a couple of those pieces up. We're trying to use almost all of them, but I'm trying to remember. I think one of them is not in this design, but a part of it is. Of course, we need our trusty 12-inch arc, which we love. This is going to be really great and valuable today. We're also going to be using one of our Echo guide rings. We're actually going to be using just the 1/2 inch. It's not that the other ones aren't valuable, but just I've chosen this one, and I think it's going to work for both of the things that we need, all the different pieces. So we're going to show a couple different ways to be using that. We won't be changing size just because this one fits the design. So this is going to make a 1/2 inch space either on the inside. If you use it inside, it's going to make a smaller circle. And if we use it on the outside, for example, like on this, it would allow us to space our arc lines that 1/2 inch apart without having to do any work, which I love. You guys know, I want it easy. I want it easy. Okay, so let's grab a couple more pieces. We're definitely using our back-to-back. And it looks like there was some chatter I saw on Sew Steady's website. This is the 3-2 back-to-back. So this is a 3-inch arc. So from here to here, where the arc is aligned at the same spot on the bottom, is a 3-inch curve. So this is actually 2. 3 and 3, and the back-to-back is an S-curve shape, right? So you get this one on the bottom is deeper and this one on the top is narrower, and we're going to be using, I think, this one because that's the one that we used last time. All right, and then we will use this oval because we already used it, so we're going to be echoing with this one if we need this oval. We won't be using this one that it's part of, but you could have used this one, we just didn't. So these are a little different. This one's narrower than this one because this is with the foot on the outside and this one's the foot on the inside. So these are about a 1/2 inch difference in their dimensions in both directions. So this one is 3, so this one is, I guess, 4, 3.5, something like that. I'll have to play with it. Okay, and let's show you one more thing. And then we did our cute little flourishes on the top right here with this little guy. And we just did a cute little crosshatch right at the top. So I'm going to lay a bunch of these out. You know me, I get disorganized. So I'm going to try to keep them nice and straight so we can find everybody really easy. Where we're going to start is we're going to put another flourish in these sections right here. So on last week I had done only one of these. I went ahead and did 2. The reason why I left these spaces open is this is going to be a frame for this space right here. And so I'm going to put a different flourish in these 2. And then that way it'll kind of make it symmetrical. So we could have done it a different way, or you can actually do 2 different designs and use the different fills. But let me grab that Circles on Quilts and we'll get started. If you remember, the way that we did these is from the center, and we used this 12-inch diameter arc. So either we set it right there and we sewed out and back from the center, or we flipped it over, same thing, and we had the foot here and we sewed out to connect it. So that's how each of these little leaf wedges right there were made. One of the things that we can always do if we have a shape like that, this is just an arc shape. Sorry guys, I gotta scoot up a little taller, I can't see. What we're gonna do is put a little flourish in this space and in this space. And because I kind of want it to be like a frame, because we're gonna put something in here, what we're gonna do is just put a couple of echoing lines right along this shape. So it's actually going to be, let's see if we can just get started. It'll be like this. We can do it either side, right? This was the same arc right here, and we're just going to create a little space right there. You can even use your spacing gauge. I'll show you how to do it. Let's go ahead and get our needle set right in the center, because that's where we're going to start from each time. So there's a lot of thread happening right there. Let's see. Get that needle up first, right? Can't pick up that bobbin thread without that. Oh, my goodness. That bobbin. This is my nemesis. I want the magic bobbin thread that will divine, that I want it to come up every time. It's not doing that. It's not reading my mind. And it's not like I didn't play with that this morning already. Why is it so short? I don't know. All right, okay, let's stick this on here and get our needle right in the center. I'm going to hold those threads, make sure we get a nice first stitch right there. Now, we had a lot of stitching back and forth on these lines right here, and I don't necessarily want to put a lot more stitching in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew out, and then I will just use this to travel just a few stitches and travel back right away. Okay, so that way we won't put too much thread in there. Right here, if I use the edge of the ruler, the foot is already going to space this line right here with the new line that we're creating. If I create this a 1/4 inch space between the line, then it's going to be a 1/2 inch because the foot already has the 1/4 inch. So by increasing this spacing from this to this, we're going to get a little bit more space between the two lines. Okay, so we sewed out. So I'm just going to scoot this right here, and we're just going to move down a little bit. And I don't know exactly how far, but this right there is only a 1/4 inch. We know that because the foot is basically touching right there. So if I want a little bit of a bigger space, I would have to go down a little further. And I don't quite have to go all the way. I just want to have a little bit of room between those two lines. So right at the back, I just lined it up on the center. And now this is what we have. So I can do the same thing on this other side. So we're just creating 3 little spaces. If I wanted this to be more, I could put one in the middle and one in the middle here. But I don't think I need that. So I'm going to flip this over so I can get the same effect on this side. Let's see, we want to go to the outside, right? Let's see, I think I got this not working that way. That's going to go the same way. So let's flip it the other way. So again, right here, I'm going to use that 1/4 inch space. That should make it, no, I got to go the other way. I keep trying to do it that way, but we want to go to the outside, this way. There we go, I got it now. 1/4 inch right there, and we'll just sew right out to that space. Okay. Now, I only have to go a few stitches, but if I didn't feel comfortable going on this, I could use this to do it. Right there, this is already lined up on that curve. Let me show you. Right? So if I didn't feel comfortable freehanding down that line, just use the template and then you're fine. You can just use that to travel. And what you're looking for, as we said, here we're touching. We want a little bit bigger space, so we'll just sew a little further down. And then you can see right there, that's about that same amount of space. And then I got to figure out how to get me back to the center, right? There we go. So there's my 1/4 inch right in the center. I can use that if I want to. Make sure your ruler is touching the edge and just coming right back in. Right, so let me show you what we have so far. So we just created this sort of like little foxfire look right there to fill this in. And then we would put a different fill right in here. So I'm at the bottom. When I do the fill that I want to put in this space, I need to be up here at the top. But I don't need to be at the top for the one that will go in these ribbon spaces right here. This is a crosshatch. So let's go ahead and work on that because we can start that from right here and then we can figure out later where we want to go. These two lines right here, both of these on both sides actually, were created just the same as what we were just playing with. This is the 12 inch, so it's this curvature. This curve, this 12 inch curve, it is the same as this 12 inch curve. Look at that, right? Same. So if it was easier for you to work with this, you could work with this. If you just want to use your 12 inch arc, this is identical right there. And we have these echo lines right here to make it very easy to space our design. All right, so in order to get where we need to go, we're going to come on this side over here, just a few stitches up this line. And how far do we want to go? We want to go far enough that this edge of the foot is touching the line. So maybe one more stitch right there. Then I can lay this arc right on that space, right along this stitch line right here. And I'm going to stitch across and we're going to start putting our crosshatch in there. Oh, I went a little too far. Darn it. I don't know what I was thinking. My brain is processing what's coming next, not what I'm doing. Right? We got to pay attention. All right, so to me that would be bonbon time. I'm just going to go back a couple stitches and get in the right position. What I want is the edge of the foot here touching this stitch line. This stitch line was created with this shallow back to back right here. That's what we did with it. And we just sewed around point to point all the way around the circle. So that line, if I lay this right on it like this right here, that will easily get me a 1/4 inch and allow me to space this next line right there. So again here, touching with the foot right on this line, and now we'll start connecting. So here, let's go ahead and we'll stitch all the way down. And now all we're going to do is just start creating these lines right here. I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm obviously having some technical challenges here. You know what? Let's just cut that and we're going to start over. We're just going to pick the other side. I see I'm mixing two different things, so I'll explain it a little better on this side. Let me show you the picture that I'm trying to go for. So here's what I want to do. I want to create a space, so we need the foot to be a 1/4 inch away, and then on the top it'll actually touch. The top curve will be the travel line, so we'll just go around, leave a little gap here. That sets these two areas apart, and then this is the travel line and this is the travel line for both of those. All right, so see, I mess up too. All right, so let's put our foot right in the center, and here's what we're looking for right there. We've got the 1/4 inch on either side. I'll fix those bonbons later, but that was too confusing. So let's try and make it a little clearer here. So I'm right in the center of these two lines right there. As I sew up, the foot will touch all the way here, because remember we said this line is going to be the travel line here, just like I showed you in that picture. Right? So we'll stitch all the way up to this line. Okay, and let's go ahead.
I have a question at the other end.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jacinta asked, why do you keep your starting threads and not chop them and get them out of the way? You might want to repeat the question.
Okay, so Jacinta asked, why do I not cut these threads? So do you see where my needle is right now? It's actually right on top of these. I can't actually get under there very conveniently. I could lift this up and these are tacked off. But for me, what's happened in the past is I end up cutting this thread instead of those threads. So I would rather just wait a little bit until this area is sort of taken care of, and then I'll just cut it later when it's more convenient for me so I don't accidentally cut the wrong area. So let's put the echo in on this side. So we said we want this nice little echo that's going to set our cross hatching off from the rest of those ribbons. Okay. All right, so we're at the top, and since we already double stitched this other side, I think I'll just double stitch this one right. What we're going to do now is travel up this line, and we're going to echo this, right? So you'll see what I mean. Let's move up on this line, and we're moving up until our foot touches the line on the right. So right there, see it's touching right there? So now I can do a 1/4 inch echo on that side. And I think we'll just travel on these other ones on the side. We'll just keep moving up on the same side until my foot touches right there. That's a 1/4 inch space. So make sure that my ruler is touching the foot. Sometimes if you have an extra stitch, you might need to stitch back, so this is touching. So all we're doing is we're just using this one side as the travel, and then this is that space. We're just making this edge touch each of these lines as we move up. Okay, so here's what I mean, like right there, I went maybe a half a stitch too far, so I'm going to make sure that the ruler foot is touching before I sew across. Okay, and now let's just, I think we can probably get one more into that area, maybe. It's very tiny, but it'll be there. Yeah, perfect. Okay, and don't neglect that little baby one, because that really does complete the pattern, I think, and make sure that you get the look that you want. So now would be probably a good time where I could cut these without any interference now. So I'll go ahead and do that at this point. I usually like to leave them until I'm well away from that area so I don't have any interference with the design. All right, let's get these little guys off there. Oh, okay. So, shh, just ignore that. That's not the design you're looking for. Okay, so this looks really cute, right? So now we have to echo this way. And we can probably even start working from right where we are. We can just put this on right there. And I think I might need one more stitch at the top because it's got a little space right here where it's nice and tight down here. So we'll take one more stitch. And that'll let us position the template right the way we want to. Okay, and same thing, we'll travel up this line just until the foot touches, so just move up very slowly. And you can use the ruler to see if you're there. Like right here, I can tell that I'm on it, but if you guys need to see it a little better, let's give you a little more top view so you can see a little bit better. Okay, so the line's right here, so I'm just going to line it up. And when we did these before, we double stitched to get back to that side, so I'll just do that. And that way we can have them mostly the same. that first line isn't quite the same, but that's okay. I'm good with it. It'll all work out. So you can see that gets a little faster as you go. And then I'll tie this off, make sure I'm in the stitch line right here on the edge, and we'll put those tacking stitches in there right there. Okay, let me turn it around. I'm not going to cut it yet because we are going to decide where else we're going to go, what else is going to happen in this area. So here is that cute little crosshatch, and you can see by creating this little space, this is allowing this part of the design to separate from this. I could do the crosshatch right into these ribbons, but I generally don't like to mash the designs up right together. I usually appreciate if there's a little visual separation. What that does is now this design stands by itself and this design stands by itself, instead of having them kind of smush in and neither of them become effective. This space right here is going to also give a little breather right here, so that when we put something up in here, then this won't mash right into that either. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to just scroll through and see. So Honey was relaying my questions. He is here, but he's also in and out making dinner. It's family dinner night. All right, so let's see. Any questions so far? So we used the circles on quilts, and that's the 12-inch arc space right here, and we just used the same exact shape, but we can also use this 12-inch arc on here. It's the same curvature. That's just a little bit easy to manipulate. Okay. All right, sounds good. Camera's good. I'm glad. Hi, everybody. Hi from Michigan, Wausau, from Wisconsin, from Ontario, from New York, Victoria, Lincoln, everywhere. You guys are from everywhere. So cool. I love that. Something that we can just unite around and we can share and leave all that disharmony somewhere else for the day. Okay, I kind of scrolled down. I don't see any questions. I'll have Honey kind of check through. If you have any questions, just let us know. We'll try to make sure we answer them as best we can. So, wow, lots of comments. Okay, so many comments I can't even find the end. You guys are awesome. Okay, so right now, I am only a very little distance from this space right here. So what I thought I would do is I'm just going to come over here and we're going to start putting a little fill right in here. And what that's going to look like, let me show you on my little design. Here would be an example of that, where you can just take your arc like this and you can just put some graduated curves in there. They will be centered on that center reference line. And we can do an empty space and then a fill, empty space, then a fill. That's what I'd want. This would have to be freehand. The circles I have are not the right size to do this, but these are going to be with our circle templates out here. So this is just play. You can put whatever you want in there, but I'll show you how to create the space so you can. All right, so the first thing I need is my oval template. And where did he go? I'm so organized, I can't find anything. Does anybody else have that problem? All right, so let's get us over to the corner. So I always recommend trying to free travel whenever you can. That is such an important, valuable skill for any kind of ruler work or free motion, that if you can, especially if it's only a few stitches, always do it. You're going to get better and better at maneuvering around your design if you do that all the time, whenever you can. This center line right here, we're going to line it right up on that center line right there. And it should space us exactly right here to this 1/4 inch space. If I need to fudge it a little bit, I will. Let's check. Maybe a tiny bit of fudging to get ourselves right over to that other side. Okay. Now, if I want to space those spaces a 1/2 inch apart, this doesn't have any convenient spacing lines on it. So this is a really good place for us to use that echo ring. I think based on the size of this space that a 1/2 inch would allow us to put a few lines in. So I'm going to go ahead and then just lift up my needle first and my foot, slide this right around the thread and line it right up under the foot. Try to get it lined up nice. Press the foot down into it like that. And then I'm going to just wiggle it a little bit to get it so it's not dragging down. I don't want it below the foot. So then I'm going to set my needle right back in place. And now notice that my needle is on this line. This can't do any spacing until I create some space first. So right here, I'm going to sew up this inner line right here until the foot is touching. So I want you to be able to see the foot itself. Let's see if we can kind of adjust this a little bit. Right there. See where the edge of the foot is right here on the back? Right now it's already down below the line essentially. We need to stitch up a little bit until it's touching the reference line. Okay, so right now this edge of the foot is the spacer. I can still put this right on that existing stitch line right in the middle and maybe one stitch back. I want the foot now to touch. These two are connected and this is the spacer. This is right on that line. So that echo ring now is doing all the work for us. Hallelujah, right? Okay, so same thing. If I want to put another ring in there, I have to move up until the foot is touching that line. So nice and easy, we'll just creep up that line until we can find our foot touching. So it looks like I need maybe 1 or 2 more stitches. And then just put this back on. You've got that center line right there to line everything up. Make sure that your ruler is touching the foot. Okay, if the foot went too far, then you're just going to stitch back to the ruler once the ruler's in position, right? And then, I don't know, I think we might be able to get one more. Let's see. Empty, fill, empty, fill, empty. That's probably enough. The way that you can count that out for yourself, when we did this design, we know that we want this to be empty, right? So this can be filled, and then this is going to be empty. Right here, let me erase that line so we don't get confused. Okay, so this will be empty, fill, empty, fill, empty. Okay, X's and O's, we love it, right? But that way, this tells me there's going to be something in there, and this is O for 0, nothing. Nothing will be in there. And that's just a way that you can try to make sure you're getting the layering that you want, where you don't have 2 tight fills right next to each other. So that's something that you can do. So for example, right now, if I was done with this, pick up my needle and my foot, and I'm just going to pop this off. I can put the needle right back down. Okay. And right now, I can just fill this right here if I'm ready. So let's see. I think we'll do it towards you so you could see. We'll just do that little kind of a, not exactly a ribbon. We'll just do like a straight curvy fill like this. It's curvy on the ends, but straight. So as I'm going, I'm looking through the ruler foot, making sure that the needle is getting where I want it to go. This is a really small motion, so I'm just using my fingertips to move. I'm not actually moving my arms. If you kind of get, trapped or uncomfortable, go ahead and adjust your hand position, and then you can keep going. Now, one of the cool things is, now I'm right where I'd want to be to come back on this row, and then I can travel, or whatever. I can do whatever I want to do. So here's just 2 different things. We did a simple crosshatch here, and you can see that that's going to fill in. And I'm going to echo the same thing on the other sides. So this one will also have the same crosshatch, and it's going to have the same cap right here and probably the same fill. I'll make these match. And then my plan is to put maybe a different fill in this space, and we'll show you that one next. So let's go ahead and we'll just scoot over, since that's our next spot. And we're just going to start filling this in, and I'm going to call this one the ice cream cone. Let's see what's the best view for you. I think this would be a good view. Now, this arc right here, this is the back-to-back, and it's the back-to-back 3-2. It's this shorter side right here, okay? So we can just use the same ruler, and I have made this center line longer so that we can use these reference lines to build this design. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do, this was kind of like an ice cream cone, but this is more like onion top almost. But we're going to do the same type of fill right here. And we can use that same spacer as well. I think that anything smaller, I think you can see this is really tight, and we have a 1/4 inch breathing space here. But I think here with all of this tightness, we could make this a little more open, and that'll let this design shine, right? If we did something really tight right here, I don't think that would be very practical for us. So I'm going to scoot down a little further because we need room for that 1/2 inch foot. So I'm just going to follow the design down. This is a 1/4 inch, but we want a bigger space. So we want already a 1/4 inch between the foot and the reference line. That's this space right here. Right? That's this 1/4 inch right there. So it looks maybe I even need one more stitch still. This is how I can estimate how much space that I need when I put that ring on. Now that ring should touch this line, or pretty close. So needle up. Let's put this back on. This is a very similar design. We're using 2 different tools, but we're using this echo ring basically the same way. So line it up, press it down into the foot, and this could be a really great way for you to be able to get any kind of easy spacing that you might want. Just makes it so much faster to use the foot instead of having to line it up, especially if the lines on the ruler are not super conducive to that. So on here, I do have some lines, but they're not like a curve echo. They're straight, and the very first one is 2 lines down. This way, when I line this right up on my design, I don't have to think about the spacing at all. The foot is doing all of the work for me. As I sew across, I'm going to sew until the needle touches. So the needle's touching the line, and then we'll travel up slowly right on that stitch line until we can see that our foot is touching right there, right at the back. It's touching. And then I'll just scoot this up. I just move it straight forward, and then we'll put another one in. So I'm right in this stitch line right here, and then we'll just travel up. The foot is touching. I can just move this forward, and I'm right on the center line, right in the middle of this curve. There's a straight line, and that helps me keep my design perfectly aligned. Okay, so let's go ahead. I don't think we can get another one in, but let's double check. It would be really tiny, but I guess we can. We'll do one last little one. All right, so then let's tack off so we can show you what we've got. All right, let's cut some threads. All right, there we go so far. Well, it looks like I missed a stitch right there. I don't know if you can see. I'll show it to you. Right there. So I may want to come back in and just close that off. I'll decide later if that's worth it or not. It may not be, but that may also be something that I can do when I'm doing a fill. Like if I put something in this space right here, I could maybe sneak in and correct that if I felt it was necessary. So let me show you where we're at. Okay, so this ice cream cone, this will have the crosshatch right here, and then we'll have an ice cream cone right there. And that'll create sort of a visual parody, because you'll have the same frame on the outside, then the ice cream cones right here, and then a different center fill right here. So this was really just to show you what you can do. You can fill these, or you can fill these, or you can fill both of them, whatever you feel like you want to do. And these are different ways that you can use the ruler to do the work for you, along with this echo ring, which is a really great spacer, especially for templates that don't have a convenient line that says, oh, here's a 1/2 inch, here's 1 3/4 or whatever. This one doesn't really have any of those lines. It does have center alignments and 45 degrees, but the echo ring would be a really great way to space those stacked arcs if you wanted to do that. Okay, so let's move out. We're going to start working on the outer edge now. So we've done some of the fills that we've talked about. We put quite a few different ones in there. I put all of these extended lines on here because we're going to start doing some connection between these designs. If I were to line up this right here, I could easily put this on the center line, and I could connect these dots right here. But sometimes if we don't have these extended lines like we do here, it might be difficult to line this up on this side and get what you need. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my foot right at the tip right there, and that's why I've made these longer lines so that I can butt this right up against the foot, and we're going to start putting an arc in right there. And this isn't complicated right now. This is just part of the basic use of this ruler, but I think it's important for you to see how we could use it on this outer area, because this is easy. This, a little bit more planning is required. You need some reference line to keep this right through the center of the design. We'll be back to this spot. So again, I'm not going to cut these threads right now. We'll stitch because the foot is right on top of where we would want to cut. I'm going to line this up right on the center line right here, and ideally over here it should match up if I did good math and I did my design well. This should be at a 1/4 inch right here. And let's check it, because we can. So try to get it right on the center line. Looks pretty good. It's right at that 1/4 inch right there, and this line is right on the center of this design. Now, it's not going to give us a ton of space, but that's okay. I knew that, and I don't care. So while we do this, I'm going to go ahead and go all the way around, and I'm going to talk about some stitch basics, just for those people that might be relatively new to the process and might need a little bit of help. When you're doing any kind of ruler work, it's really important that you have a good hand position. Normally, I try to hold this way, but for this design, this is more practical, right? It's just more practical to hold on this side. So I'm going to line it up against the foot. Always do this part visually. Don't ever just put it on there and say, oh, it's not moving, it feels secure. You could easily put that ruler up above the foot if you're not doing it visually. Make sure the ruler's flat, and then get it positioned, lined up nice. Here we're going to use the flat edge of the spacing gauge and put it flush with the template to measure a precise 1/4 inch as we go. When I hold, I need pressure on the back of the foot, or right here where the foot is as it sews here. I can't have all the pressure back here behind the foot. We need it on both sides. So I'm going to widen my hands and activate these grips right here. Start your gas and then move through your design. Those first couple of stitches, even if they're tight, it's okay. And I'm going to adjust my hand so I have pressure where I'm going. Okay. And I'll get right into that center point. And then I can do the next one. Right now, I don't need to rotate this sandwich. I can just position the ruler. I'm right on that center line, and I can use my 1/4 inch spacer to get me to the next position. Now, if I want to sew this way, I'm going to push my entire sandwich in that direction, sort of on an angle. Here, it might be convenient for me to actually use 2 hands to move the sandwich. Then I won't really have to adjust my hand position as much. And I just push away from me and get me right to that exact point, right where I want to be. So now if we're doing this one, I don't have to rotate again. I can just line this up. I'll check that distance with my spacing gauge, make sure that I'm going to get right to that spot. And then same thing here. If you're ever moving side to side, I recommend a 2-hand approach. You can hold it on the back of the foot or the front, whichever the design requires. And now I'm activating both of these grips. And when I use 2 hands, then this is going to give me push and pull. This hand is going to be helping me to pull this way because we want to bring the sandwich this way, and this hand will be pushing that way. So with them working together, it's a little bit easier to get everybody to behave. Somebody asked if I was using the BSR. So today I'm using my Janome 9450, and it's working great. I have several different machines, and I do like all of my machines. They're all awesome. And what I encourage is always, I think, you can see that I'm doing well with any of the machines. I mean, they all are stitching beautifully. They have great capabilities. Many of them have large throats. Machines are created by somebody, a person that thinks in a certain way. And that means that they may or may not think like you. So I always encourage you to try out any machine that you're thinking of purchasing, because you want to make sure that that machine is a good matchup for the way you process information. So you can see just that simple line right there. Look at how much richer it's making our design. I'm going to just kind of scoot out. Look at that. Isn't that awesome? It totally changes everything. And my plan is to actually punch down this tiny little bit with a micro stitch right here to make this edge lift up right there. Ooh, cannot wait. Probably going to do that in black, perhaps. I don't know. I haven't decided. I'll probably test it out on something and then decide. So once again, we're kind of back at this position. This is our center line, and the foot is holding our position here. So we should be able to get the 1/4 inch right here. So let's get lined up. Right there, I'm precisely at that 1/4 inch. And then that's going to let me sew right in. So I'm activating these 2 grips right here, and this finger is activating these grips. And then I'm just looking inside that little hole, making sure that I'm getting the precise position to stop. So, any questions about hand position, about the spacing gauge, about, here? Always watch out for your fingers. You'll notice that either I keep my hand low, or sometimes I may widen my hand right around this bar. That's going to help me make sure I don't get bit by that bar. That is something that can happen with any of the systems. So it's really good just to watch out for that. It's painful. I've been hurt by that, and it's not fun. So we want to avoid that. All right, and we're almost done. So let's go ahead and put one more line in. Babe, can you grab that right there? I'm going to need that in just a second. Thank you, sir. I'm holding on to this because I need it in just a second. Okay, let's get this last line in, and then I'm going to show you the next part of our design. All right, now we've talked a lot about how we're going to create space in between, breathing space. So I'm going to tack this off, and I can jump stitch to do the next piece. What I want to do now is I'm actually going to lift up my needle and my foot, and I'm just going to jump to my next position. if I were to put this ruler on here like this, and I want to create another arc like this that creates some space right in here, and the space I want to create is a 1/2 inch space. Well, if I put this 1/2 inch on there, that's only a 1/4 inch space because the foot will take up half of that. And you can see that right there. If this was the space that I was using, see that the needle would be in the middle. So I need to be further away. But this 1 inch, that's going to give me 3/4 inch spacing, right? Because the foot will take up a 1/4. So none of these are exactly convenient at this moment for the 1/2 inch spacing on this outer edge that I want to use. So in order to do that, if I put that 1/2 inch ring back on, we'll be perfectly ready to space everything. Okay, so get this on, push it down, make sure that it's seated properly, and we'll just wiggle it up just a little bit so it's not hanging down below the foot. I don't want that. Once I decide where my position is, it's the foot touching, right? That's the spacing that we're looking for right there. We're still going to be on this center line, and this needle, let's turn this just a little bit so you can see it. We want the foot touching, and we need the needle in the crosshair mark right here. So let's see if we can get that all lined up. Right there. All right, I think I got it. Maybe just a little bit in. About right there. Now we can use this again, and we can get the perfect spacing that we need, right? So let's see what it is. It should be 3/4. So when we line this up, I think we need to come in just a tiny bit. Here's how we can check it. Right there, it should not be the full 1 inch. It should be a little bit less than that so that we can have the right spacing. All right, let's go. I think it's a little tighter than I wanted, but that's okay. We'll correct it. Go all the way to the crosshair line, right? And now we should be good because we got it all corrected. So we can just double check right there. Should be just a little bit less than that. And now we'll get sewing, and we'll just go around. Right to the crosshair line, that's where we're going to stop. So when we use that, there's that 1/2 inch space now that we wanted. That's going to give us a little bit of a bigger space, and those extra long lines suddenly become really valuable. These long crosshair lines that we made, they're helping us. Oh, could you guys see that? This is why it's wiggling around. My grips are on top. Don't do that. Oh, that's funny. So silly, huh? Just doing a quick visual check. That's going to help us make sure that we've got a nice spacing. All the way to our crosshair line, right there. And same thing right here. And just to help keep you guys in view, I'm just going to rotate it a little bit each time so we can help you make sure that you can see really well. Right to the crosshair line. Sorry, that thing just keeps wanting to fall off. Just right there, nice and tight. Oh, I'm getting a little crazy over here. I'm going to straighten it. All right, and I'm going to adjust my hand right there. I could feel that I didn't have enough pressure out on the edge. So putting my hand out here really is going to help me. I know that spacing gauge is so valuable, right? It's awesome. I have the teal one and I have several clear ones because when I was just using the clear ones, They were always getting lost, so I could never find them. All right, so let's get this one in. Kind of get him nice and tight right there. So this is a 1/2 inch circlet, and now there's a 1/2 inch on each side of that foot. So that's the spacing that we were trying to get ourselves aligned with. Right there, crosshair line to crosshair line, we're touching right there with the foot. This is our last one. So if I'm a little bit wonky, I'm going to just use my 1/2 inch to space that so we can come right in. So because that foot is now spacing it at a 1/2 inch, when I connect up to this existing design, I need that 1/2 inch spacer to get me where I need to go. Oh, really good. I think we're maybe 1 stitch short, so I'm just going to connect the dots right there and just tie that off with some micro tacking. All right, so let's go ahead and cut this. Oh, I used my scissor button, darn it, I pressed the wrong button. You know that's going to make that bobbin thread really short and impossible to pick up. So let's go ahead and take care of that before we start sewing. Otherwise, I'm going to be just losing my mind. Let's see. There we go. Try to get him. Now, I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to show you where we're going to go next. We're trying to create some space here with this outer area. So this is the bridge right here. That's going to be no quilting. It's going to be open. And we're going to make an orange peel arc right here. Because I know I want to fit this circle in there, right? I can kind of play with it a little bit and put it right on the line and know where it's going to stitch out. I can even use my little stitching line discs real quick just to practice where that's going to be. So this is what we are looking for. This is how I decided what spacing that I wanted for the next arc, is I actually put this in there, and I knew that this arc right here, whatever it is, it has to leave enough room at least for this right here. And I'll show you how we're going to space this circle, but that's the planning factor. When I was thinking about putting those circles in there, you have to create a space that's big enough to accommodate it. So just putting that on there and actually looking at it and seeing, will that circle fit? That's how you can make that judgment. So let me show you the next piece of that discussion. If I line this up and I wanted to sew from this point to this point right here, if I did that right there, it's barely going to leave enough room for that oval right there, for that circle. It's going to be very tight right there, because what we would do is we'd put the needle there and we'd stitch to this point. This is simulating what that stitch line is going to look like right there, and there's not a lot of room for that circle to fit in there. So I decided that when I lined this up, I'm actually going to use 1/4 inch above on each side. So right there, I'm on the first reference line. So let me show you. Right there, I'm 1/4 inch above. I'm using this first line right there to line up on the tip. And I'm going to do that on both sides. And what that'll do is going to create 1/4 inch more space right here so that the circle isn't crammed in there. And that's just a random decision that I made. I just spaced it out. I was playing with it on paper, and I felt like I didn't want the circle to be crunched in there really hard. So let's go ahead and we'll sew that out, get it all lined up for you. So 1/4 inch on this side and 1/4 inch on this side, and this is lined up right on the center line. Here we're positioning the ruler first. That tells you where your foot needs to go. If the ruler's in place, then we can say, okay, right here's where the foot is going to be. Right there. We'll kind of tuck these guys underneath so they'll get out of our way. All right. put my needle right in position. And now I can realign, get everybody back on their spot, right in the center there, right there. So I'm lined up at the quarter right there, and I'm lined up at the quarter right here. So there'll be a slight gap between these arcs. They won't actually touch each other, but that's okay. One of the things that that's going to be good for is when I fill around the circles with some microfill, then I can easily travel between these arcs because the fill will actually just go right in between. So right here again, I'm on the center line, and I can just use the line on the template to adjust this corner right here. So I'll show you right there. So right there, I'm using that first reference line right on the tip, and I'm lined up right in the center. So we'll just keep going. So here you can really see this is where I'm holding with my left hand, and I'm controlling the sandwich with my right. And just as we talked about in the past, we can line up everything. I'm lined up here, I'm on the center line, the foot's holding my spot, and I don't have to rotate my sandwich. I just have to push the sandwich in the opposite direction of the way I want to go. There's no need to rotate. If we try to rotate around the ruler, that's pretty ineffective, and it doesn't allow us to control our stitch length very well. So here, I'm just going to push everybody straight towards my right side, your left side on the camera, I think. Stopping at the crosshair mark, and then just moving this over and realigning on the center line and on that first arc space. I'm just going to creep my finger up so I can complete that. I needed a little bit more compression. I was really far away and I didn't have good pressure here. So just creeping that up a little bit is the difference between this and that. So that can be really helpful to making sure you have that good fit right there. So let's keep going. We're going to just put a few more of these lines in so that we can create the space that we want to fill. So part of the goal of this lesson is how you can use rulers in combination with free motion and create spaces that you can fill that will add that additional level of detail to your design. And that's something I think that all of us quilters want. So we're concentrating on what spaces are we creating and how are we going to fill, like what's empty and what's not empty. And we're almost done. We've almost gone around the whole design right here. So we'll go ahead and put this last line in, and we're going to echo that too. And I'll show you one more way that we can use this terrific tool for that. So right here, we're lined up, but remember this last line right here, we don't care what the ruler is doing, we just want to close the design. This is where all bets are off on the ruler and the spacing gauge is king. You just want to connect your design so that when you stitch in, this ends right where you left off. Okay, so right here, let's just do a few of those tacking stitches to close that. I'm going to cut the threads and then we'll start this last echo and then we'll start putting the circles in there. But we'll give you a chance to get a good look at it before we do anything else. Honey, do you have any questions so far?
No, I think
All right, so your bobbin thread is going to retract. You can just pull it away and the bobbin thread will go down to the bottom. And then we'll just get those threads cut. So let's give you a good visual so far. So somebody says something's giving them problems. Hi, Ada. I'm having problems with my sewing machine. You have a Husqvarna Sapphire. So I'm going to refer you to Donnell. She is our Husqvarna queen, and she usually has a lot of great tips. If you message me, she's got a little, like a guide for those machines. And so if you send me your information, then I can go ahead and I'll forward that PDF for you and anybody who wants it. So if you want it. So right here, you can see now we've got a nice space right here, and we're going to put an echo right out here as well. So let me show you something real quick. This can easily echo this right here as long as this template can fit on it. We've got the center line, and we can line it right up, and we should be able to create this echo right here. The echo that we're trying to get is to match this one. So this will be the frame on the inside, and there'll be the frame on the outside. Let me show you what that's going to look like. So on this one, when I was playing with it, I love this part, and I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to fill in here, but this was only a 1/4 inch. I didn't like that. I want these to have some parity between these two. So we're going to put that 1/2 inch right there. So because we used our 1/2 inch echo ring the last time to do it, and I know that this will lay right on this arc right there perfectly, and maybe it won't be so perfect as I start pushing it up because this is starting to get bigger and bigger. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the echo ring back on so I can have that exact spacing just like I did before. So I'm going to put the thread through there, push that down, and again, make sure that the ring is seated nice and firmly. It's not wobbling around. Like if I tried to put it down, you can see it's not wiggly jiggly. Then I'm going to line up the ruler. The ruler is the position where this is going to touch. We're going to be on this crosshair line. So let's go ahead and get that. And actually, I'm going to turn this too so that the slit is not in my visual field. All right, there we go. So hold the ruler, and now we can pick up our bobbin thread. Just make sure you're right in that crosshair line. Let's see if I am or not. Right there. Okay, that's better. And then just get those threads out behind you. We are going to come back to the same exact spot. So pretty convenient. And you'll see now, I think this is a lot easier being able to use that echo ring out here. And again, I'm on my left side, so I'm easily able to manipulate the ruler. I am right-handed, and for some reason, I feel really, really comfortable manipulating the ruler with my left hand and the sandwich with my right. So if you're a lefty, you may want to consider trying that yourself, seeing if that makes a difference for you. Let's see, I'm going to try to adjust some of our camera, a little bit of our lights, because we've got some glare going on. It's coming right into that camera. There we go. Hopefully that's a little bit better for you guys, not quite so much glare. Okay, and then same thing, just going to line it up right on the center. Again, those crosshair marks are invaluable to this type of a design. They make this design possible. So you're getting to see several different ways that we can manipulate and we can move things around. We can get the spacing that we need or get the alignment. One of the things that I think is important is sometimes we set the ruler in place and we just think, okay, we're going to start sewing. But a lot of times the ruler can tell you where your foot needs to begin. So it's not that we always set our needle first. Sometimes we want to wait and position your foot after you set the ruler. So here we know that this has to go on the center line because that's keeping the peak of this curve right in the middle. And so we are lining that up first. And then as we sew across, that is guiding where the foot goes. Now we're already in position, so it's not a big deal. But if we were starting out, that's what you'd want to do. Make sure that you position your ruler first, and then you would know where your foot needs to go. So there's my crosshair line right there. And again, just getting aligned. As we sew, I'm going to be pushing the fabric that way, and I'm going to sew forward. Notice that my hand is nice and low. I don't have my wrist up real high like this or trying to push so much pressure. I don't want to have white knuckles, Wiggle your fingers every so often. Make sure you can get that circulation back in there. I think we all do grip a little too hard. But the key that we want to work on with this, as we're going around this process, if I press really hard into the foot, if I put all of my motion towards the foot, I have the potential that I could put too much pressure on this. This machine isn't designed where if you put a ton of force against the foot, that needle bar could shift. So what you're looking for is firm, gentle pressure, and you're not trying to be real crazy about it. I don't want to push this way too hard, and pushing down too hard means that we can't move the sandwich at all. So just nice, easy pressure. We had a quick question. This is from Nancy. This is my batting. This is just some inexpensive leftover that I have. I think that is probably Warm and Natural, I'm thinking. It's pretty thin, actually. It's not a really thick batting, right? It's kind of a low loft. I think it's good for what we're doing here. We don't have any complicated design requirements or anything for this. Another reason not to push too hard right here is if we push really hard, we could actually pop this ring off because it's just a little compression fitting. So just make sure you have a nice wide hand pressure. I've got some fingers off the ruler, and this finger is giving me motion information. So if this ruler moves, this finger is going to feel it against the fabric right there. So here I'm activating these grips, and we'll just sew to the next spot. And notice here I'm just pushing the fabric backwards. I'm not rotating the sandwich. This edge is staying the same. Okay, and right into my crosshair line, and we'll just finish this design up. We only have 2 more of these arcs, so let's just get them out of the way. A nice, easy sound on your machine. Okay, and then this last one, and we'll use the 2-hand method on this one because of the way it's positioned. Now, okay, so let's do this one more time. We already talked about this. I'm going to come to the middle right here because it's too far, I think, for you to be able to see conveniently. So let's get right to the middle. I'm stopping right on this crosshair line, but I still need to adjust this side. But the reason I did only part of it is, again, we need to use our 1/2 inch measure on our spacing gauge. Because now this needle is a 1/2 inch apart right there, when we line up to connect this right here, we need to use a different measure on our spacing gauge to make sure that we close the design. So it looks perfect. It looks like we're going to perfectly connect, which is great. We want to do that. Okay, and now let's go ahead and tack that, and we'll start working on those fills, which will be our last piece for today. 4:10, good. I think we have just enough time to put that element in and answer any questions. So we used the 12-inch arc a lot today. That's pretty a valuable tool. What did you think of that? Have you guys used that for lots of different things? So let me show you real quick. I can't pick up my bobbin thread. It won't come up. And when that happens, just turn your flywheel to the front a little bit, and that will release it. Because usually what causes that is the thread is hanging up on the bobbin, and it hasn't completed a full cycle. So if you just rotate your hand wheel forward a little bit, it tends to release that bobbin thread so that you can cut it. All right, let me cut these bad boys. Always those little threads are hard for me to pick up. Okay, let's do our fill right in here. We're going to use our little circle to do it. And I've already played with this. There is a little gap right here, and we want our circle to go right through the center. We don't want it to be too close to either side. So I want to play with it a little bit and make some markings to help me get what I want. Let me grab my little tool. All right, again, we want to be on the center line. And this space right here in between, let's measure it. Let's see how big it is. It's not quite a 1/2 inch. It's a little bit less than a 1/2 inch. So what we're going to do is we're going to put almost a 1/4 right along the middle, right here. Just like that. This is splitting that space right in the middle. And before I sew it, I'm going to check and make sure that the circle does fit in the middle. Linda, I'm using the Fun and Fancy 1 inch between the line circle. So this is a 1 inch reference. And when I line it up, this becomes the crosshair now that I've just made this little reference line right here. And I'm actually going to make 2 because I'm going to show you how we can put the fill in and travel to the next one. So let's actually make 1 more mark. I can't make the circles super easy, all perfect. You tend to have to go back and forth a little bit with the circles, but the fill itself that we're going to put in the circles will be continuous, and you'd be able to put it all the way around. Okay, so right there, maybe I need to come down. So I can see here it's bigger. So it looks like my angle might be slightly off. So I'm just going to adjust it a tiny bit to give me a little bit more balance on those two. Yeah, there we go. So you can use your eyes. I mean, once I get all the circles in there, it's not going to matter, but I can tell that this is a better space right here, right? If that's 1/2 and that's 1/2, then there's still some space for each of those. So this is going to put the circle in the center of this orange pill right there. Yes, I can use lines on the template, but we have more than one circle, and we're trying to make sure that they're centered this way also. So I think a little bit of extra legwork at the beginning is going to make it faster when we actually sew it out. But to answer your question, yes, and I'll show you that as well. All right, so this is where we are. We've got our space right there, and I can see this and this are about even. And I can put the circle on. When I do the other circles, I want them all on the same line, which is why I made this line. We're going to be able to fit 3 of these 1 inch circles, and then we'll have enough room for maybe a little baby circle. So let's go ahead and get it lined up. Let me pick it up so you can see what I see. It's going to be hard to hold, but I think this will be worthwhile. So to answer the question about can I use the lines on the ruler, here's the center line, and notice how the opening right here touches this line below, and the opening here touches this line. So we did a really good job of centering the circle right in the middle. And I think that when I'm planning, I want to check for that. I want to use multiple ways to check that, because once I sew these in, if one is closer to this edge or closer to that edge and the other ones follow, I do think that that has the potential to be visually distracting. So I generally will put a little bit more work into making something more precise if it's really a visual element that's going to draw your eye right in. And these circles definitely will draw the viewer's eye. They are one of the most important things that I see when I look at the design on paper. So we want them to be a little bit more accurate. But the visual space would be the same amount of space right here as you have there, and you can use these lines as a reference. All right, so let's get lined up. I'm lined up through the center here, and then I'm lined up squared across side to side. And this should put them nicely right in that orange peel. All right, let's take this off. We might need that little guy later, but we don't need him at the moment. We can start anywhere. We are going to sew around the circle more than one time, so it doesn't really matter where we start. There we go, trying to get that thread. In this instance, since I've already got everything aligned and I don't want to try to realign it, I'm just going to leave the threads on top of the template, and I'll just move them out of the way as I sew around, right? So let's sew one. And here, right there, I can just get these threads out of there now if I want to. Get them out of the way. And we'll sew one more. I can tell if one more can fit based on how it looks right here. So let's see if we can get you in a little closer to see that. And I'm going to use my little pointer real quick. Let me grab that. All right, so right there on that side is the stitch line, and on that side is the stitch line. Both of those lines are well away from where the circle is going to stitch. Even though they're inside the plastic edge right here, the circle will stitch inside of that and inside of that. So now that tells me I can add another one of those. If those lines were more in, like a 1/4 inch in, then maybe I would want to consider whether or not I was going to stitch another circle in there. So let's go ahead and we'll put that in. Okay. And right now, if I want to put another one in, this is where you can see that those definitely will not fit. See how much room right there? So what I can do is I can actually put that echo ring back on, and I can take up more space on the inside. And this might not do it. Depends on how much space we have. What we can do is lift everything up and just try it. So let's put it right through the little split right there. Push it down. And I'll lift up the foot and make sure that everybody's going to be in the right spot. So let's kind of get him up so I can work with him a little. Now I want to align the needle right back where I was. If the thread right here is slack, I can just pull it back up at the top of the machine, right? So we can release the pressure, foot pressure, and now I've pulled that thread back. Because when we put one of these echo rings on the inside, it's taking up some of the circle. So we've got it still lined up right here, but it's going to make a much smaller circle right there. Right? So now we have our circle done. I can lift up the needle, and I'm going to jump just right over straight to this other side. So you remember I told you we can't necessarily do the circles all in one go. We can't just easily connect them. But here, I'm just going to put my needle right on the other side. One of the nice things about this jump method right here is all the extra threads over here. I can just line up the circle right on the lines that we've made, right there, get everybody lined up, and I'm ready to sew. So let's go ahead and we'll put this one in. Right here, as we sew 1.5 times around, right there, we are just tacking off that circle. So when we cut those threads, everybody will be secured. And now I can go ahead and I can put a little baby right here on this outer edge. And you can play with different sizes. This is the 1/2 inch. And when I use different rings, this is going to allow me to make the biggest circle that I can as far as the rings. If I use the larger ones, they're going to make even smaller circles inside of this little circle. All right. So I'll just scoot that over, get him lined right up, and compress him. He went on real easy that time, so I'm just going to lift him up, make sure that I have him all the way on. And then I'll set my needle right back where I was, and then get aligned the same amount of space on each side so that my circle is going to fit right in there nice and pretty. All right, let's go back to this side and then I'll show you my little embellishment. Let's take all this off. I don't want to cut my thread, so I'm going to go ahead and take my key out, and I'll also get all these guys off as well, so we can pretty much just get everybody out of there. Ooh, tricky. Get him out first. Right there. And then I'll pull that thread and tighten that up. I'm going to seat that needle right back in the circle, right where I left off. And then we'll take these out. Always put your key back in. Okay, otherwise you could lose him. All right, and I think we got some extra threads I'm going to cut, and I'm also going to put my rings away because I have a tendency to lose them also. So I'm going to put them in my drawer, and then let's cut some threads. And we'll show you what we have too. So we're not going to take this out, but I love that I've got this cute little fill right in here, and he fits perfectly, which is great. So let's cut some of these threads. All right, and I might even come back. Remember what I said, we would want to finish all these circles first, and then I'm going to show you how we can make this part of this design continuous, the next part. Let me just snip that thread on the bottom so that we don't sew through it a bunch of times. Because since we jump stitch it, I want to make sure that it's out of our way. So I would sew all those circles, and then I would cut all the jump stitches off, and then we'd be ready for this fill that I'm going to show you right now. Let me turn it so we can get it closer to you, and we'll adjust our camera a little bit so you can see. All right, let's get you a better position right there. All right, so if I do 3 rounds, if I stitch 1, 2, 3, that brings me here, and then I can get to the next set of circles right here, and then I would go 1, 2, 3. So the fill that we're going to do, I'll just draw it out here a little bit so you can see it more easily. So visually you're thinking of this as the center of the circle, and they're all in a line, right? So visually you're going to do an S like that. And you want your S to essentially end right at this middle part. So up and down, up and down. And it doesn't matter if it's perfect or if they're the same or not, it'll all work out. Then I'm going to come back over the top, come back over the top, and come back over the top. And here you're going to see that they're going to connect as they come in here. You're going to get a little extra thread right there. Then go back on the bottom the next time, back on the bottom, back on the bottom, and then you're back at the new position to start with that next grouping. So this is the start point right here, right there, and you'll go 1, 2, 3, and then you can hop over to the next set of circles, and you'll be able to go all the way around. Let's see, can you guys see that? Honey, could they see that? Was that in the camera or not?
You're just right at the bottom edge.
But you could see it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well hopefully you got that. We're going to do that up here, and we're going to go forwards, backwards, and forwards, and then we would just jump over to the next set of circles if these were already stitched. So just a reminder, you would have to sew all the circles first, and then I would put this fill in, and the fill would be able to be continuous with a slight jump right here in between each one. Okay, so really tiny circles need a really tiny S, right? So just sew a little faster. Okay, just concentrate on getting to the middle, right? That's what's most important. So here a little bit faster, and then right into the next S. And here, if you need to readjust your hands, just do it at that middle intersection. Try not to do it on the S curve itself. Make the S curve. And if you need to rest, do it right there. Okay, so then we'll do our little S curve here. And now we'll come backwards, over the top, over the top, rest, adjust my hand position, and over the top, and over the top on that little guy. So right there, I love how it looks, but you can see it's kind of weighted towards the top. So I'll take 1 or 2 stitches here on the bottom. And what that does is it sort of brings the design back into balance. Okay, so always do that center one first and try to center it the best you can. And then this is the bottom one right here. And right here, I can just do a little tacking right there, right where it connects, because there's enough extra thread. Then I would just pick up the needle, and then I would just jump over to the next circle. 1, 2, 3, and I'd be able to make it all the way around the circle doing that design without having to cut my thread. So let's go ahead and cut that. I was very excited because I saw that several people did this design and played with it. So I'm excited because obviously it resonated with some people. Again, if you have different templates, if you have different spin effects, different circles on quilts, some different arcs, or the 12-inch arc, most of us have that, or the 4-inch arc can do some of this right here. If you don't have Fun and Fancy, your 4-inch arc would work really well for designs like this. You can crosshatch with just about anything. And all of these right here, we're just tipping that little spin effects a little this way and then doing it again and tipping it a little this way to make these little flourish lines inside there. So most of us have something like that. And then here's the circle, right? So I'm just going to scoot out just a little bit so we can get a bigger view of the whole thing. And I'll kind of hold it up a little bit as well. So when could I use this, right? When could I use this on a quilt? Whenever you wanted. You can make it a little smaller if you needed to. If you have a block and you want to put a circle in the block, then you can determine how big your little leaf points will be by just making a smaller circle as your reference. Because remember, we made a circle right there with chalk, and that guided where we connected this on the outside. Well, if you make a smaller circle, then your center motif is going to be tighter and it can fit in a smaller box. And you can still use all the same techniques that we did in the last 2 lessons. So I hope that you'll feel free to play with it. I'm happy to always show the back. It's the exact same thread. It's the pink, it's isocord, it's exact same color. I do have a few threads to clip, but it's exactly going to look like the front. Soluble marker question. So the marker that I used is the Fons and Porter for the crosshair lines. I like a fine crosshair mark, so I used this, or you can use the Choco liner. Where's mine? Right here. This is the Choco liner, and this has Fancy Iron Off chalk powder in it. So you could definitely use that, and that does use steam and heat, and then all the lines will go away. With this one, I will pre-erase the lines. I actually use my bigger eraser. Let me show you. I'll actually take this bigger eraser and I will erase those lines before I wash it. Let me show you. Let's flip that over. I like those lines because I knew I was going to need those lines for a while. And with the Choco liner, they can rub off. So right here, let's just play with one of these lines and I'll just erase it for you so you can see it. Let me show you. Right there. So there's the circle, right, that you see. This was what we used as the reference. So that's the circle that was made with chalk. And that was the initial outline to give us these. So we started with 16 crosshair lines with an 8-point crosshair, and we started with an 8-inch circle. And then we used the 12-inch to come back and forth. Okay, so right here, if I wanted to just erase that, I would just use my eraser and I'll just erase it right there. So that'll get those markings pretty much right off. And I tend to do that before I would wash it, right? Get most of the line off, right? So there's a little residue, but it's pretty good. This is ceramic compressed chalk. There's no fillers or waxes or anything in there. And you'll see that's going to just wash right out. So with this one, the Fons and Porter, it's a little bit more work. With the Choco liner, it's not going to stay on as smoothly. It will come off easier. And I didn't want this to come off because I knew that there was wait time in between. Somebody just commented, I'm going to comment on this. Somebody said that their design does not seem to be as neat on the back. Usually that is a result of a tension issue, mostly. Also maybe the incorrect needle. So I think that those two things, always test. Take a scrap that is the same batting and the same top and backing thread and test your fabric and make sure that you have a good look on both sides. If my stitching is pulling this bobbin thread up to the top, like if I can see whatever color's on the bottom being pulled up to the top, that means the top thread tension is working too hard and you would want to lower that top thread tension. If the top thread is visible on the back of your sandwich, if I can see the top thread color on the back of the sandwich, that means that the bobbin thread is like grabbing it and pulling it down to the bottom. So that means that we need the top thread to work harder. So you would want to increase the top tension number in that instance. Those are your two things as far as tension. For a 40 weight 3-ply thread, I'm using a polyester, which is Isocord, which is a 40 weight 3-ply. I like a top stitch 9014 needle on a domestic machine or a 16 needle on my long arm. Both of those seem to work really well with that thread. You do need to match them up, and if you're not getting a good look with the needle that you have, maybe try one size bigger, maybe try one size smaller. A quilting or a top stitch needle are going to protect the thread from abrasion. So let me just grab my needle here real quick. I can grab these out and we'll talk about needles for a second, really quick. I have lots of different needles, right? Top stitch needle, Inspira top stitch. I don't recommend a jean needle, period. I don't feel like that protects your thread very well. Quilting needles and top stitch needles have a deeper groove in the needle shaft, and the thread is riding in that groove and it's protecting it. And what happens if your needle's too small, the thread is riding on top of the groove, right? Or if the groove is really, really big, the thread might be wobbling around in it and not being confined to the groove. Both of those can cause stitch issues. So make sure that you have a good assortment of needles to match whatever thread that you're doing so you can get the best stitch performance. Because I remember throwing away 2 spools of thread and saying, oh, these thread, it's crap. It's just never works. I've tried it and tried it. And it was the wrong needle. It was the wrong needle size and the wrong needle style. Somebody asked about my white eraser. It's just a regular piece of white eraser from Staples or wherever. Any office supply store will have something like that. Just a plastic eraser. You can use gum also. I think this is a little firmer, so if I'm pressing hard on the fabric, this is going to give good resistance and I can hold on to it really well. Plus, it's dual purpose. Look at that. Okay, well, if you're having trouble with your thread, tell me what your combination is if you want to communicate with me. Tell me the name of the thread, what it is made out of, and the manufacturer and what needle you're currently using. And then we'll see if we can do some troubleshooting and get you a better setup. Okay, you guys, I think we are done. It's our time. So one last look. This is the Fun and Fancy set. Of course, I want you to buy my awesome Fun and Fancy collection with my awesome book. But if you don't want to, don't worry, my feelings aren't hurt. No, I'm just kidding. But use what you have. You know, I always encourage you, use what you have. So you can change this to any size. You can adapt the techniques that we showed you to fit whatever evolution of the design that you're doing. Paper is your friend. And just play, and you'll have a lot of great opportunity to make really fun and unique designs. So in the next 2 weeks, I will be gone. I will be back, I think, on the 12th, which is the second Sunday of the month, and I will be traveling that morning. My plan is to prepare my long arm class ahead of time and have my machine already loaded so that when I come back, I can just do that class quickly and easily without a lot of rigmarole, but I will be back from a bunch of teaching in Reno, and then I will be leaving on Tuesday for Kansas City. So if you're going to Kansas City or Reno, come and visit me. I want to see you and say hi to people in real time. So that's my plan, but I might have some notifications that I might be off for a week or two if it conflicts with my travel. So just keep abreast. So Steady will be publishing those on the site. And if you are doing my free motion Fridays, same thing. I'm going to put notes out there. Right now we're on session 4 this coming Friday of the intersection project. So if you have not seen that and you're interested in that, it's a slight combo of some templates and rulers, but mostly free motion. And so 3 of those are published. I think 2 of those are published. The third one will go onto YouTube this Friday, and it'll be the live class for part 4 on Friday on fabricated quilts. So plus, if you're going to either of those shows, I still have some spaces in some of my classes. I would love to see you guys there. Okay, have a great day. Go enjoy your afternoon, your evening, your morning. I don't know what time it is for anybody, but have a wonderful day and happy quilting.